We're discussing reptiles and some of their key features that help them sustain life.
Reptiles are snakes, lizards, crocodiles, turtles, and tortoises.
The four main reptile groups, also known as orders, are Crocodilia, Sphindontia, Squamata, and Testudines.
This is a short introduction to reptiles.
Hi everyone! Today we're going to learn about reptiles. Reptile is the name for a large group of animals. Reptiles are vertebrates, which means they have backbones. They are also cold-blooded, have scaly skin, and lay eggs. When we say that reptiles are cold-blooded, that does not mean that they are cold. It just means that they cannot keep their bodies the right temperature without help. To warm up, reptiles move somewhere warmer, often a nice sunny rock. To cool down, reptiles move somewhere cooler, perhaps into the water or a nice shady burrow. Because of this, reptiles mainly live places where it does not get too cold. This is probably why reptiles live on every continent except for Antarctica. Their skin is one good way to tell if the animal you are looking at is a reptile or an amphibian. Reptiles' scaly skin is dry and watertight. It may be rough or smooth, dull or shiny, but never slimy. If you see an animal that looks like a snake or a lizard, but it has wet or slimy skin, you're probably looking at an amphibian instead of a reptile. Almost all reptiles lay eggs, although some give birth to live young. Unlike birds' eggs, which have hard shells, reptile eggs are soft and leathery. Unlike amphibians, reptiles lay their eggs on land. Even reptiles that spend most of their time in the water, like alligators and sea turtles, lay their eggs on dry land. Reptiles are fascinating creatures and come in many different shapes and sizes. Some people even keep reptiles as pets. Some reptiles make good pets, and some would make very bad pets. I hope you enjoyed learning about reptiles today. Goodbye till next time.
How do reptiles move? Lizards are not able to lift their body up to their limbs, so they have to crawl using the help of their limbs and tails. Snakes, however, have three different ways of moving on land: lateral, undulating, straight crawling, and side winding. Crocodiles do a belly crawl, which has the chest, stomach, and tail flat on the ground, leaving just enough ground to clear them to move forward. The legs move in alternating diagonal pattern, the front leg and the rear leg moving forward simultaneously. Tortoises are pretty simple, as they just crawl and walk by moving one foot at a time. However, turtles can swim, and they move underwater using a similar motion. However, turtles have webbing between their toes, and they can catch more water than just their feet would. Now, this causes water resistance in the form of drag.
Snake locomotion has always been somewhat puzzling to scientists. Some have speculated that snakes use leverage by exerting force on resistance points. That is, they push against rocks, branches, and other surface irregularities. But that doesn't explain how snakes navigate so swiftly in sand and over slick roads. Recently, it was discovered that snakes also make use of directional friction and weight distribution. Like most people, you probably think snakes are slimy. So how do these smooth, scaled reptiles generate friction? Well, contrary to popular belief, snakes aren't slimy. In fact, they may even feel a bit rough. Snake scales are smooth to minimize the forces of friction when they slide forward. Conversely, when snakes slide backwards or sideways, the overlapping scales, which resemble roof shingles, dig into the ground, causing frictional resistance to occur. If the friction exerted by the snake is equal in all directions, snakes just oscillate in place, meaning they'll go through the motions but won't be able to go anywhere. The scale's frictional anisotropy, or resistance to sliding in certain directions, helps the snake push itself forward. Also, scientists have discovered that snakes, through muscle movement, can change the angle their scales meet the ground. A larger angle generates more friction, while a smaller angle generates less. Weight distribution is also important in snake locomotion. If you closely examine a moving snake, you'll see that their body doesn't always remain in contact with the ground. Instead, snakes lift parts of their body off the surface to direct their weight on specific points. This is comparable to how humans shift their weight from heel to toe in order to run faster. It still isn't completely understood how snakes move. But it's important to keep learning about this because there are so many potential applications.
How do reptiles exchange gases? Most reptiles have a three-chambered heart that contains two atria and one ventricle that is partially divided. Little mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood occurs in the three-chambered heart, even though there is a partially divided ventricle. The mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood is controlled by the heart valves and the movement of the ventricle walls. Blood flow can be changed to either pump deoxygenated blood to the body or to stop blood flow to the lungs. Pumping blood to the lungs uses up a lot of energy for reptiles, so diverting blood flow can help the reptile to save energy when it is not active, and for aquatic species, this can allow them for longer diving times. However, not all reptiles have a three-chambered heart. Crocodilians have a four-chambered heart, similar to mammals and birds. However, when they dive, their four-chambered heart can act as a three-chambered heart. During contraction, some snake and lizard species' chambered heart can act as a four-chambered heart. Reptiles breathe through their lungs. The reptile lung is large to the exchange of gases. Gases exchanged across alveoli in their lungs, making reptiles' lungs more efficient than other species of animals, for example, amphibians. Each main reptile order has a different process of gas exchange. In squamates, the muscles of the chest wall ventilate the lungs almost entirely on their own. These muscles are used during movement. For example, squamates have to hold their breath while exerting themselves, so if they run fast. Some lizard species use a process called buccal pumping, which utilizes throat muscles to gulp in air. Crocodilians use their muscular diaphragm, which is similar to the mammalian diaphragm, for breathing. Researchers have studied testudinids to find out how they breathe and have collected a range of varying data. The Indian flapshell is a type of turtle that researchers have studied to observe how turtles exchange gases.
How do reptiles grow and reproduce? All reptiles reproduce sexually and have internal fertilization. Males have one or two penises that pass sperm from their cloaca to the cloaca of a female. Fertilization occurs within the cloaca, and fertilized eggs leave the female's body through the opening in the cloaca. In a minority of species, the eggs are retained in the mother's body. Newly hatched reptiles look like small versions of adults. They are able to move about their own, but are vulnerable to predators. Most reptile parents provide no care to their hatchlings, and most reptiles don't even take care of their eggs.
Sorry. Most reptiles drink water through their mouth like most animals. However, some desert reptiles, such as the thorny devil lizard, can absorb water through their skin, as they have a maze of straw-like tubes under their skin. As these animals live in such scarce conditions, they are able to go without water for a long time. A reptile such as a crocodile can go without water for periods such as 2 years.
How do reptiles gain energy and nutrients? Reptiles are ectotherms, which means they rely upon ambient thermal heterogeneity to regulate their internal temperatures by basking in sunlight to become warm and moving to shade to cool down. This tactic is in contrast to endotherms, such as birds and mammals, which rely upon metabolic heat to maintain a high and relatively constant internal temperature. Endotherms are like racing cars. They keep their engines revving at high speed most of the time. For example, they not only can deliver extra oxygen to muscles that are doing the hard work, and because they generate their own heat, endotherms can function effectively even in cold conditions. This energy is used as an energy source to enable reptiles to deal with seasonal fluctuations in temperature and food availability. Reptiles make efficient use of their food energy, none of which is used to keep their bodies warm. Modern reptiles feed on some form of animal, insects, mollusks, birds, frogs, mammals, fishes, or even sometimes smaller reptiles, whereas others are vegetarians, eating leaves, grass, and even cactus in some cases. The amino acids delivered from these sources of protein are the building blocks for growth and development of skin and body tissue. A deficiency of essential amino acids is likely to lead to poor growth in juvenile reptiles and failed reproduction in adults.
How do reptiles remove waste? Among reptiles, the way they remove waste varies depending on the reptile itself, the climate, and the habitat. Aquatic reptiles tend to excrete a large proportion of their waste as ammonia in aqueous solution. Terrestrial reptiles, such as snakes and lizards and so on, must conserve body water, and they convert their nitrogenous waste into insoluble harmless uric acid, which forms a solid mass in the cloaca. The cloaca is a body cavity that the intestinal, urinary, and genital canals empty into. Excretion in most reptiles is performed by two small kidneys. Uric acid is the waste product of all reptiles. Unlike the kidneys of birds, for example, reptiles' kidneys are able to produce liquid urine more concentrated than their own body fluid. Reptiles do not have a separate opening for poo to go through, instead they have a cloaca.
How do reptiles sense and respond to their internal and external environment? Reptiles utilize the nervous system and special sensory organs to help sense and respond to their internal and external environment. The brain and cerebellum control instinctive survival behavior within the reptile's brain and is a highly dominant feature. A fun fact is a reptile's brain is made up of the same basic parts as the amphibian brain. The reptilian brain is relatively the same size as an organism. In reptiles, sense organs such as the eyes and nose are well developed. In the brain of an alligator or crocodile, the olfactory bulb, which regulates the sense of smell, is a well-developed structure. However, snakes slightly lack these attributes and accommodate for them through an organ known as the Jacobson's organ. Snakes have poor eyesight when looking at longer distances and are better at focusing on nearby and small objects. Snakes have a better equipped sense of smell and use their tongue, which flicks rapidly, to smell something. This process carries tiny particles into two small cavities in the roof of its mouth to come in contact with the Jacobson's organ. After coming in contact with the Jacobson's organ, snakes can identify their prey or a possible predator near through their sense of smell. Snakes can either smell with their nose or by utilizing their Jacobson's organ. Different species of snakes can have features such as a heat-sensing pit organ, which allows the snake to effectively have a sixth sense that helps them to find their prey. For crocodilians, however, their upper and lower jaws are covered in sensory pits, which appear as black dots on the skin. Bundles of nerve fibers are found within these sensory pits that are able to detect tiny vibrations and small pressure changes in the water. These receptors allow crocodilians to sense and detect their prey, danger, and intruders, even while in the darkness. These sense organs are known as dermal pressure receptors.
Please complete this quiz if you'd like. All the websites utilised in this gathering of information is cited on this slide. Thank you for listening.